I got my power pole down, stuck in the mud in the bottom of the lake, sitting so still in the wind and the waves, could even be a hurricane.
Hey, welcome everyone back to Downtime Live. Today, we've got Rick Murphy in the studio. How's it going, Rick?
It's going really well, thank you. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing splendid. So, one thing that a lot of people are talking about here in Florida, we've been unseasonably cold. And Florida people, we don't handle cold well. Like, we can't even dress for the occasion. We're like, are flip-flops okay? Like, should I wear pants? Do I own pants? Right? And so that kind of confusion carries over into fishing. And we're about to get hit with another unseasonably cold front here. And so help us eliminate some of that confusion. You're a Florida guy. You know these waters really well. What can we do when the weather turns the way it has been and these cold fronts come through and still find fish?
Well, it's really relatively simple. So you got to remember that, one, we live in a really tropical state. So when you have high humidities, then obviously the fish like snook and like tarpon, even the redfish permit, all of those fish seem to thrive in that kind of weather. Hence, that's why our prime time fishing for those species is in the spring and the summer. So obviously, when we get that kind of weather where we have now, plummeting humidity, we get those clear, crisp days like you have in the cold time of year, you have to adjust your fishing. And what we always seem to forget is those fish adjust to it as well. So right now, I noticed yesterday in the bay here in Tampa, we had 63.6 degree water. So the one key element that I would tell everybody to really put in their hat is to remind themselves of which side of the cold we're on. So let me explain a little more in depth. You know, as the cold front approaches and you have a falling barometer. Even though the water temperatures might be cool, that could trigger a bite. Mm-hmm. So don't, run from the hills because you got cold water to begin with. Keep in mind that cold water is still going to have some warmth to it. And the fish know one key element. There's going to be a time of the day when that window of opportunity is open for them to feed. It may only be an hour or an hour and a half of time, but they're gonna feed because they have to feed in order to survive. So what we wanna do is think about what we need to do and how we need to adjust our fishing. So one, we might need to slow down. Two, it might not be an artificial bait fishing situation at all. So you might have to go to a shrimp on a jig head on the bottom and really drag that nice and slow. One of the things that you got to remember and constantly remind yourself is as the water temperature slows down, the metabolism of the fish slow down, so we have to slow down. This is the perfect opportunity to really utilize your power poles because now you can power pole your boat down, stop, let everything settle, and then fish a lot slower than you're accustomed to doing. Now, as the cold front comes through and you get clear blue days, and a lot of times with a north wind, all the water blows out off of the flats. Remember this, now during the heated part of the day, from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock, all of those flats are going to be incubating in the sun. If the wind stays north for a day or two, that cold north wind is going to still continue to chill things. But if it clicks into the northeast or even goes east and blowing hard but still warm and exposed flats, guess what happens when the tide comes back in? We've created a jacuzzi effect. All of those flats now have been essentially baked in the sun, and when the water comes up there, it can be as much as 10 degrees warmer on a day where you have a little bit of humidity. So humidity plays a huge role in helping warm things up or cooling things off.
Now, you got to put some of those, into practice here this week. Why don't you tell our audience what exactly you've been working on? What can they expect from you've got a myriad of TV shows, and so tell us some of those projects you got some in the works.
So for Power Pole, one of our things that we do is we create 13 Power Pole tips of the week to air both on the Florida Insider Fishing Report and the Texas Insider Fishing Report. These Power Pole tips, a lot of them are how to use your pole. Also about some new product, like we have the Charge that's coming out. And then there's a lot of them on how the pros manipulate the power poles through maybe multifunction switches, little simple things like, sometimes we get asked at a trade show, well, how do I back my boat into the garage with the pole sticking up? Well, we simply just deploy the pole slightly. So little things that make sense on how that. Now, this year, we just did one on the new travel strap, which I have a story for you that I had something land on my power pole switch that I keep inside the console of my 23 Pathfinder. It deployed my power poles, and 50 miles later, when I got to the boat ramp, my spikes were about this big. If I would have had the travel strap on, then I wouldn't have had to replace the spikes. But that's one of those moments that you get out and you kind of scratch your head and say, oh, so all those guys that were passing that were honking at me, it was because the spikes were creating all kinds of sparks as we were going down the road, and they were telling me to, maybe you might want to pull over. But that's all part of it sometimes,
All right, well, hey, that's going to do our show for us. Thank you so much, Rick, for stopping in and talking fishing with us. Don't forget, we'll have these pretty regularly now. So if there's something you want to see us talk about, someone you want me to talk to, let me know in the comments. And until then, how do you spend your downtime?